and Finance Committee meeting of the School District of Waukesha. First order of business is the meeting properly posted. Mr. Clark?
Yes, it is.
Okay, next order of business is opportunities for citizens to speak, and I don't see any citizens other than board members and employees here tonight, so we'll move right along to that. Committee issues, action items, approval of monthly vouchers. Were there any questions submitted on vouchers?
There were, so I
Good.
have some answers to respond to. First question was on voucher number 312856, and it was payable to That is for eAchieve. It's for site, keeping it up to date, but also to keep them in the search engines high at the top, so that it ensures that when someone does a search on virtual schools, they're on the first page and as close to the top as possible. That's what this company provides them, and it does that by keeping that website up to date, making a lot of changes to it, so that it's continually changing. But the expenditures for that, this year, we have spent $54,926 so far, but there is still another $50,000 encumbered, so the anticipated expense will be close to $110,000 by the end of the year. Last year, for comparison, we spent $127,000 for last fiscal year, and for this fiscal year, before that, $148,000. I'm not sure why the price is going down, but it is payment for that web service.
Mr. Como?
Have we ever bid that out?
I can look into that, but I don't have the answer to that.
I would appreciate you looking at it. It seems pretty high to me.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised you think that that wouldn't be a,
Like exceptionally high.
yeah.
Okay. And again, that is for web maintenance also, not just providing the search engine, but content, keeping the content up to date and maintaining the web. But, yeah,
Who would be the appropriate person to talk to? Would that be Steve, or would that be actually Rick?
it's
at
Rick.
each?
Rick
Oh,
Nedesheim is the one that handles that through eAchieve.
I just might give Rick a call to talk a little bit more on some of the detail there.
Okay, and I can double check and see when if it's been bid out and when. Okay, any other questions on that one?
Nope.
Okay, I'll move on to the next one, which is voucher number 312918, and it was for tuition to UW colleges, and that is for the Youth Options Program. And we, excuse me, we do have the two programs, Youth Options and Course Options, which we pay tuition to the colleges for. And for Youth Options this year, for fall, which is the busier time, more students enroll in fall, we had 441 classes that we paid for a total of $45,674. And this spring, it's anticipated to come to $22,576 for 206 classes. Now, for course options, it's much smaller because they all try to go to youth options first, and it's if they get declined on youth options, they'll go to course options. But so the full year of course options is anticipated to be almost $14,000 for the course options. Course options, they're limited to 2 courses per maximum. We only pay half the tuition. Youth options, they're allowed to take 18 college credits throughout their high school career, and we pay the entire amount. And we can decline if we have a course that is similar or that we already offer as part of our curriculum, we can decline those. In youth options, it becomes a little harder to decline them. There's fewer reasons why we can decline a student taking a youth options course. So.
Mr. Como?
Yeah, I think those are good programs, especially when we aren't able to have the offerings at the high schools. So I think it's a good way to fill that gap and to not overstaff, and to be appropriately staffed, I should say, because if the demand isn't there either, and there's just some students who are gifted and talented that need to be challenged some more, and our state allows for that, and so I think it's good, and I think it seems like these dollars have been roughly the same over the years too. I don't think there's been any major up or down on those, so it seems to be pretty steady.
And that is just the tuition costs. We also, with youth options, we do pay for the books also. They range anywhere from $70 to $400 for the textbooks. They're creating a lending library now too to offer that option versus buying the books outright to allow people to come in and borrow the books instead of paying for books. Because we require that they buy the books up front and then we reimburse them for them. But that can be a financial burden on some families depending on the cost of the book up front. So they are looking at lending libraries also when it's feasible. Any other questions on that?
I think I'd look into the book fees and see if that's something that, part of student fees is for books, right?
These are college courses and
Yeah,
this,
but if we're charging our regular students for books, why wouldn't they pay for their college course books?
because it's part of the law, the rule, that they don't have to pay for the books for these. It's part of the rule, the DPI rule. I'm guessing it's a statute rule that the schools absorb the cost of the books also, materials for these courses.
Okay. Sounds a lot to me like when we used to have to pay both sides of the WRS fund.
Yeah. The employee portion was paid by the employer.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the next one. This is the last one. It's voucher number 313168, and was for Midwest Family Broadcasting. And those are for the eAchieve advertisements. They run a lot of radio spots and radio ads right around the open enrollment time to help encourage students to open enroll into eAchieve. And so they're going into other markets besides the Waukesha market to run those ads so that other students are aware of the offerings we have. And they do an awful lot of advertising. This is just one company, and with this company, they spend around $15,000 a year for radio spots, but that's just a very small part of their advertising budget. They spend a significant amount across all the radio stations.
Mr. Como.
Thank you, sir.
Trying
Same
to call him myself, I guess. Go ahead,
Well,
Mr.
you can
Como.
do that too. Same question. Have we bid that out?
And I will look into that. I don't-
And I think what our total budget was $350,000 or $400,000 this year for advertising for eAchieve.
It's in that neighborhood. I don't remember the exact amount.
I was thinking it was closer to the 300,000 than the 400,000,
Right.
but I don't have that figure with me.
Yeah. I'd just like to know if we're bidding that out too, so.
Absolutely. I will get the answer to that and respond to the whole committee.
Mr.
And-
McCaffrey?
Is that just buying spots, or is that for actual production of the commercial?
I don't know the answer to that one either. I can check on that.
There are companies that just,
Yeah, I
you know,
thought this
some
was for
radio
the
stations
spots,
do not
but
sell their own stuff.
I thought this was just for the spots, but I don't know for sure, so I'd rather double check on that.
Ms. Ryanchek?
Thank you. This is just a general question for you. I noticed that there's, and maybe this has the same weight as are we bidding things out, but I noticed that sometimes we buy items for our schools, or there's different items on here that are either purchased in town, like local little mom and pop shops, or sometimes they're at our bigger department stores. Just wondering, are we looking at prices and we're going with the cheapest price, or are we trying to spread it out so we're keeping the little guys in business? How do we, when there's a purchase, let's just say for some of these maintenance ones in the beginning, whether it's Blifford Lumber, Ace Hardware, or Home Depot or Menards, it's spread all out on here. It's not just one store, so I thought, well, maybe we're just trying to make sure we keep, local businesses, we're trying to support them. But then I thought, if we are looking for the cheapest price, I mean, we do so much business, how does that work?
We
Darren?
do have some things that we have out on contract that everybody's being consistent in using. For example, Staples. We have a contract with Staples Corporate where we get the best buying prices. Everybody has linked to that same website with just the prices for our district. And so when they're ordering office supplies and things like that from Staples, we can capitalize on that type of a buying. And same thing with our paper, which we've talked about at another meeting. We have a contract with a vendor for paper. Some of the other things depends on the situation. So some of the schools, if we're looking at the maintenance, some of it has to do with proximity to the school, and they'll have an account set up so that the maintenance person, if they need something on the spot, they can easily go someplace close, which would be why some of them might go to Ace, some of them might go to Menards, because they can have different accounts set up and go in charge and not have to have a credit card or have to have cash that they have to outlay up front. And then otherwise, it kind of depends on the needs, and if the teacher is going out shopping and happens to be where they're going, we don't have any set guidelines on all of the spending. We try to capitalize on some of the major ones, but give a little bit of leeway to the,
So these aren't Glenn's people going out and buying different items?
it can be, because if the head custodian at the school needs something, they can go out, and that's when they generally have accounts set up close to their school at some place that they can run to and pick up supplies that they need quickly. Otherwise, if it's main maintenance supplies, like cleaners, things like that, Glenn's usually getting bids for the business to order all from one big company and get the best prices on those type of things. But let's say a faucet breaks at a school and they need to run out and fix it, they might have an account open at their local Ace Hardware to run in and be able to buy the small miscellaneous things that they need to purchase.
Excellent. And small miscellaneous things, I get it, depending on location. But at what point do we say, okay, let's say paint? Do we shop around and do we make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck because we have so many buildings? At what point? Is it a price point? How do we determine this gets bid out?
It varies, but we have kind of $5,000 as a number where we require 3 bids, even though I think board policy is even higher than that. Sometimes with paint, though, I know in my previous district, we ended up always using Sherman-Williams because all of our records are in one spot and the colors are known and it's there for us to access. So we didn't move it around. I think Glenn has a similar setup, but I would have to check with him.
Sherwin-Williams is the
Yeah, I think
main-
Sherman-Williams is ours as well. So sometimes there's benefits beyond the price, and tracking colors for all of our buildings is a pretty valuable tool for us. But you get into his cleaning supplies and where you can do the bulk purchasing, then we go through a bid or proposal process. Sometimes with Glenn's area, though, sometimes time's a factor. Is it an emergency? Isn't it an emergency? Do we have access to the building just today? You know, this is a little different than, you know, you're gonna use cleaning supplies all year round, and you can take that time and invest it in that process of selecting the best value. Tenants here?
Yeah, I'm just making sure that we have some type of a system and it's not just,
We have systems. We don't have it for $20 items, but we have it when it gets to a critical mass.
said 5 or 10. Okay, that answers it. Thank you.
Well, you know, I think you bring up a good point, Ms. Ronachek, and that's usually the first thing we look at is, you know, I would competitively bid something, but one of the things I look at is whether we're getting the results, you know? We just talked about a $104,000 expenditure so we can be the first, or someplace on the first page of a website, and I don't find us on the first, second, or third page. So
Interesting.
that's, oh, that's Yahoo, but I guess I can search Google, maybe we'll do better, but you assume that if you're on that proper sequence, you'll show up on both of them.
Yeah, search engine optimization goes across all search engines. Pay-per-click is by, you have to actually have an account with each provider. But search engine optimization is organic and should get picked up by all search engines. if they're doing their job.
So
No,
we need to look at the overall budget of the e-Achieve and make sure, that thing started out, I mean, I've been a big supporter of it and I remain a big supporter of it, but it started out that it was gonna make us money and it ended up not making us any money. And then we got it to break even. And that was done in a lot of different hard ways. A lot of it was Rick's hard work that got us to a position where it's a cost-effective program, or has been, but I wonder, are we getting the results? I'm certain enrollment hasn't been spiking, and, we struggle, we add more grades, and we add this, and we add that, and
what we can do is just ask Rick those general questions. I mean, it's the same questions we should ask any department, so we're not figuring out e-Achieve necessarily, but we can throw that in a Friday update or something so the full board can see.
e-Achieve should get a little more scrutiny than, because it is a program that we started with the intent that it would be self-funded or even turn a small surplus. And when it's not doing that, that's a big problem for the board.
Oh, yeah, in terms of, I was talking about just explaining their expenditures, but I would agree that e-Achieve is different in the break-even analysis that you generally wouldn't do for K-6 instruction or some other
A
department.
program, right?
When we were running huge deficits, the argument was that we shouldn't be doing analysis on it, but the reality is we didn't start it to subsidize it with taxpayer money from Waukesha, so. Any other questions? Any more voucher questions? Okay, do I have a motion? Mr. Como?
I move to approve the vouchers as presented.
Second.
Any additional discussion on the motion? Motion by Mr. Coble, second by Ms. Madden. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Okay, next item, approval of the self-funded dental plan. I believe we have a guest here tonight that's going to talk all about dental plans.
Yeah, Melissa Beck's here. She's our benefits coordinator. This is her second meeting in a row, so maybe she's just enjoying these meetings so much that she'll be a regular. But self-funding, I'll just do a brief intro, then I'll turn it over to Melissa to walk you through the information. Is something that the district's been looking at. I know I asked, I raised the question when I started, why aren't we self-funding dental? If you're willing to self-fund health insurance, dental's a lot more easier line of coverage to self-fund. So we think we're at a point where the savings justifies making the switch, and I'll turn it over to Melissa to walk you through. We got it down to a 3-slide PowerPoint. I thought the board member or committee members would appreciate that. So, and then we can answer any questions. You do not have to act tonight. We'd prefer if we had action, we agendize it as action, but if there's questions we can answer, we can come back next month as well, so.
Do you have a presentation for us?
I do. I think we're
Your,
next soon.
is your mic on, Melissa?
Oh. Yeah. I don't know how to tell otherwise. Okay. It was, yeah, it's the same presentation. I don't think it's
We,
connecting, but
we
that's
can,
okay.
we can learn patience. I mean, it's not like it's a rush.
I'll put that in the minutes.
I can just speak to the actual PowerPoint you guys have in the
Why don't you go
packet.
with that?
Yeah.
They're all in your executive
We
summary.
have them.
It's here. So sometimes it could just be the connection with the computer. So we're looking at moving the Delta Dental over to self-funded. Currently, the district offers 2 fully insured dental plans. There is a district-sponsored plan where about 1,100 employees are on that plan, and then there's a voluntary program as well with about 34 employees, and we contribute currently 88% for the district-provided plan, And again, the voluntary is 100% paid for by the employees. So over the years, we haven't shown any signs of it being beneficial for us to move to self-funded. There was always a high loss ratio on dental, but it's been actually changing. And this year, we're seeing over $100,000 in savings to make that switch to self-funded. And one thing with self-funded dental is there's really not a lot of risk or liability because it's a very defined benefit on the plan. So if you look at the second slide there for the renewal options, so our renewal did come in on fully insured where they're recommending a 3% rate increase, and again, increasing our costs and the cost to the employees. And in moving to that self-funded platform, there are some savings there. However, they're still recommending that we keep the 3% increase just based on trend. But in moving from the fully insured to self-insured, could be $100,000 in savings again. Versus in the past where it would be a loss. So the next slide kind of shows that historical data there on the fully insured versus self-insured and looking at that comparison. And again, as you can see, the savings wasn't there to make that move on the from the fully insured to the self-funded. And this year's the first year that's actually a material savings for us.
Caffrey?
What has changed?
Well, I'm not 100% sure what's changed on the usage, but dental, one thing with dental is that it's a defined benefit. So the plan pays, set $2,000 per member per year. And maybe, you have bad years just like a health insurance plan, but again, we don't have that exposure because it caps at the $2,000. So it could just be that, over the years, people have been taking better care of their teeth. They got a lot of work done. It could be age, demographics, as our population changes over and the younger population comes in, it could be the change of that. There's many different reasons for the dental to change that way, but because it's a defined benefit, it's not, we don't have like specific claims data to be able to.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
To
Do you have the
see-
experience rate about who's
No,
hitting their 2,000?
self-funded, we would have more access to that. Anytime you have self-funded, you have direct access to that data. Fully insured, they like to keep you in the.
Yeah, I know they do.
Ms. Ronachek?
Thank you. Well, so why wouldn't we, if we're gonna have 100,000 in savings, why wouldn't we pass on just a little bit of that to our employees to have an incentive to use this? Like, why wouldn't we just raise it 2% or 1%? I mean, yes, we would raise it because of trends, but kind of like we did with the other clinic, we wanted them to come in the beginning. So I think did we have a $0 deductible or $10 copay, or I'm sorry, not deductible, $10 copay or no copay at first for like that first year or something? Do you guys remember? Real low. So why wouldn't we do something like that to get them on?
Well, with the renewal, the 3% is an overall, it's kind of a blend of what our actual increase was. So the increase between the two plans was 2%, 2 to 7%. And so they took the blend. So we are passing on some savings to the employees by bringing that renewal, the rate increase down to the overall 3% versus a 2% and a 7%.
Would benefit and we would benefit.
They're right, the premium will not go up as high as it would if we didn't move to the self-funded.
The other thing with that, just like when we switched to self-funding health insurance, we left the COBRA rates where they were because you need to build up your reserves.
Yeah.
So really, the significant balance of that $100,000 that we're going to save is going to be, if everything goes as planned, will be put in the reserve to put us in a, because you do have, it's limited exposure, but you still have exposure to a bad claim year. I mean, it doesn't vary like health insurance does, but But and then after that, we can look at where, once those reserves are built up, we can look at where should those COBRA or funding rates be set. And hopefully they're stable or slightly down, but fighting trend with dental as well.
Como?
So, do you think it would take us 3 years to build up our reserves? That's about how long it took us to get a was it?
Yeah, it would take us a few years to get to, that 3 to 4 months of claims threshold that we're targeting with the health insurance.
Who would be administering this
Self.
stuff? Okay, so we're not outsourcing that portion.
No, we internally, we track, just like the claims payable with the health insurance, we would track the claims, we'd create the claims payable for the dental. Because it's a defined liability or defined exposure on the dental, it's easier to know what our reserves needs to be.
Right.
So we'll be able to target, kind of when we think we're gonna hit that reserve. Because we can easily calculate out.
So do we need stop loss insurance? So we don't, because it is defined, so we don't have that upper unlimited limit, essentially.
Right, right.
Any other costs that we would need to be concerned with? Because it definitely is less from what we have to consider when compared to our health
Absolutely.
care self-insured scenario.
There is an admin fee with Delta to administer it, because the plan, just like United Healthcare, is still through Delta, and they administer it. So the savings is taking that into account. I think it was I don't remember what that,
I can't either.
um,
But you're
it's
still,
like
you're
$3
still
there,
utilizing
so.
Delta Dental's networks, so you have to pay
And claims.
access fees and the claim processing. That's one other thing, we're with Delta Dental now, we would still be with Delta Dental, and the only impact to staff, so the networks and everything are the same.
The same, right.
The only reason staff will even know will be self-funded is they will get new ID cards. Other than that, it should be an invisible transition for them.
Right.
So we have the capacity to take this on then, internally? I'm
Oh.
asking that of Darren.
Absolutely. I was self-funded in dental in my previous district, and even in the business office, you really don't even realize you're self-funded in dental. It's pretty invisible, or it's not like health where we're analyzing the claims payable, and it's a completely different animal and much easier to administer.
Okay.
So we're recommending that we do make that move to the self-funded. And looking at any other dental carriers in the area, there's just not any players. It would be huge disruption as well to our members. So in going to self-insured, we're able to stay with Delta, keep that status quo, but also, hopefully bring some savings to the table as we go. And then the 3% increase again would go into play for the renewal for the reserve factor and to kind of even out that renewal trend that we
I got a question. Mr. Clark, this is almost like a no-brainer, right?
In my mind, I was surprised you weren't self-funded when I got here. When you're willing to do health insurance with that exposure, but quite honestly, the numbers didn't,
our loss ratio is very
because
high.
I looked at it as you're at least saving the administrative percent, right? Like there should be a built-in savings, but Benico, and we almost did it last year, but the savings they were projecting in light of us switching to a high deductible health plan and the time it would take, we just postponed it to this year. Now that we hit $100,000, it was kind of an informal target we had. I think it's a no-brainer.
Well, I think our demographics continue to shift from what we had over the years, so it's been a little bit higher turnover of the teachers retiring and different setup entirely. But again, I guess the difference is how many people max out to 2,000 is basically what the risk is, right?
Right, yeah, that's per Per belly button.
So do you have a rough number on what our per belly button number is now?
Oh, no, I do not. I have employees, but I don't have belly buttons, so I apologize. But I can definitely get that.
How about
information.
per employee? Let's just forget about the belly buttons for now, roughly.
1,100 employees, yeah, almost everyone that's eligible is on our dental plan.
Okay, but 1,100 employees, and that would be on an average, if you divide 1,100 into 1.3 million, $1,000 an employee.
But what is the orthodontic benefit?
It's a $1,500 lifetime maximum. Capped
Per employee or per person?
per person
Per
on
person.
the coverage, yep.
Oh, that could be quite a bit. In my family, it's quite a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, lots of kids, whatnot.
Mr. Como?
You mentioned that you took a look around and there really wasn't any other competitors that could do what Delta Dental could do for us?
Been my findings that they've kind of cornered the market. I'm sure, if I remember right, this district was with WA Dental for a long time, I'm assuming. I don't think WA even offers dental anymore.
So what does the administrative contract look like with Delta Dental? Is it a 1-year term, 2 years, 3 years? Is there other aspects of that?
We can change back anytime.
Yeah, you can always flip over.
Dental is
Yes,
just
because
an
if we
easier
see
than
it's not really working for us, I mean, I hope it does, but if it really isn't, we could flip back at any time.
You could flip
Yes.
back.
So Delta Dental is a network of doctors, or is that how they work? It's just a network? It's not,
Well, Delta Dental contracts, it's more like a United Healthcare, their administrator, they contract with a lot of different providers, in-network, out-of-network. Yo, Premier,
the dental version of, but it's much smaller than United Healthcare.
yes, I would say so.
Right.
Look, you know, I can be honest with you, I really forget about who my healthcare provider is. I mean, it's just, they want to make sure you're insured, and it could be I have Delta Dental, it could be I think I do have Delta Dental, but it's just,
I think everybody has Delta Dental.
yeah. Okay, any motions?
I have one more question.
One more question?
Who makes the decision when you go from dental to health insurance on certain procedures?
You mean who's primary, who would pay first? It's built into the plan document, so on our medical plan, the accidental dental injury would be
Right.
covered under medical, and then impacted wisdom teeth are
Okay.
covered under medical as primary, and then it would hit the dental as secondary.
Okay. So emergency stuff is definitely,
Emergency falls under medical.
Mr. Como?
Darren, would this begin July 1,
No,
or is this a
we're
different?
targeting September 1, right?
Number one, yes.
Okay. I have a motion.
Okay, Mr. Como?
I move to approve to self-fund dental insurance with Delta Dental beginning 9/1/2017.
And second on the motion?
second,
Motion is Mr. Como, second Mr. McCaffrey. Do we have any further discussion? I guess you did an excellent job of answering everybody's questions. Well, with no further discussion, we'll go to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our last item would just be the approval of the 2016-17 budget amendment before we go to the closed session.
Every year about this time, if the year's going well, we have a discussion of moving some dollars around that are coming in line items that are under budget, and that's what we have before you tonight to consider. We're recommending, and it's a variety of accounts, we have a lot of accounts, but a variety of accounts that go into the generation of this $650,000. So like last year, we have budget numbers for these capital improvements. They are budget numbers, you don't know, so there's also a contingency list if the pricing comes in significantly better. Last year, this transfer was significantly larger than this year. So I don't know if that's a sign of things tightening or what, but we're comfortable making a $650,000 transfer to fund the projects listed there to be completed this summer. So I can answer any questions you might have of process or, but as I said, this is all kind of a routine conversation come spring.
So just because we happen to be sitting in a building, it always has its own questions. The partial window replacement here at Lindholm, what does that encompass? Which windows are we replacing now, maybe?
Just the bottom panes.
Yeah, so,
Actually, the windows we're talking about are this bank of doors right outside.
Right,
The glass that goes all the way, it's pretty big. The same thing on the back, or what's really kind of the main entrance, the bank of doors, the glass going up, and then this side of the courtyard on the first and second floor are the ones that we're looking to do. We're also looking to re-roof what used to be the gym or the ITE Achieve. If you want to know how our roof's doing, just look at the parking lot when you walk out the door. That roof's just to the point where we have to do something. So we're going to shingle that roof as well. And then the doors are included in those glass. So that's what we have mapped out for this building for this summer.
Mr. Como?
Yeah, I mean, we've delayed much of anything done to this building, except with the exception of some windows last year and some painting last year, for years. We actually had budgeted, I want to say, upwards of $400,000 or $500,000 at one time to make more work around here 10 years ago. So we've delayed a long time. These are the most critical windows, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's really the doors and with the new, because a couple of different things. All of the glass is single pane glass, so there's some savings there. You're never gonna get a quick ROI on windows. The cost is too high. But also with the doors, we'll be able to put secure, be part of our alarm system, so we can lock down the building and things like that. We've talked about doing this side of the building at some point with new windows from here down to the business office. But we need to decide, this front section, we put cooling in. And we need to put the cooling in before we do the windows, because I don't want to put new windows in and then have window air conditioners hanging out of every single one of them. So, in my mind, I agree with you, Joe. I think this building, and you know, Murphy's Law will play a role here. Once we start investing the money, a plan will appear that might make that decision look poor, but we've talked about these windows, I can tell you, since 98, 99, 2000. So it's time to start. And I wouldn't, I look at what we do here as not a budget discussion on the front end, because I wouldn't want to postpone other work at other sites ahead of here. But this is more of a spring conversation to me. Things are coming in good. We have some flexibility, and just nickel and dime our way to, you know, upgrading this facility.
Mr. McCaffrey?
you got bids on this yet?
On the work to be done?
On the roof out here?
Yeah.
You have a bid on it with a
Yep.
flashing and the whole shot,
We looked at, we also looked at metal
right?
roof. You're into the 6 digits.
Yeah, right. That's
And
what I was
that-
wondering.
And that just didn't, I know we probably should invest in this building, but it just didn't seem like money well spent, even though it would last every day
Yeah,
that we
right.
would
Yeah,
be in
right,
here. So
right.
if we're here 30 years, 40 years, then we probably should have put a metal roof on. If we're not, But it was well over $100,000. And with the condition of the existing roof, I don't know what the roof's condition, even though we don't have leaks, I mean, I should make that clear, but it was time to do something that.
We have to do something, definitely.
And Glenn and I just aired, you know, the shingle roof is nearly, it's about a third the cost of metal.
Somebody came out and looked at it.
Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the windows guys have been in to
Start
measure.
ripping that stuff off. Especially that roof.
The rip-off comes every time it's windy.
Well, we may save some money on that.
Yeah,
But it's just, I don't know, 180 for, that's a lot of work for $180,000.
yeah. Yeah, and the majority of it's the glass. It's the windows and the doors. And I think the shingle roof was 40, if I remember the list.
That's a fantastic price, because the house will run you at least 15. I was wondering if you had
And again,
a
we only,
bid on it, because it sounds inexpensive to me.
we're only talking the gym. The rest of it's a flat rubber roof.
Yeah.
You're only talking that back,
Right.
that back section. But there's no dormer. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but you're up there.
Yeah, you're up there, there's a lot of flashing, because you gotta go to
I
the
wouldn't
new-
be up there, but
Yeah, right. Okay.
I just have one comment, and, you know, we don't, obviously, a lot of this stuff is in our past, but I don't care. Whenever you talk about maintenance and replacing stuff as part of maintenance, if you were forced to do an ROI, it would be a 100-year ROI or something like that. You know, the nonsense of saying that, you know, you don't do it because it's a 40 or 50-year ROI is just, you know, foolishness. And so what I would say about this is that it does show maintenance costs money. I mean, it's $650,000 for essentially 5 or 6 of our sites, right? And so it just shows you that, you know, we do move from our general fund into maintenance fund when we have, you know, to short-term maintenance needs requirements. So it's not like we're just putting off maintenance and waiting for someday when we need this big pot of money. We are doing maintenance as we go out of our normal funds. So that is happening. So do we have a motion for the budget
I
amendment?
have one more question.
Yes, Mr.
Under the
McCaffrey.
contingencies, what kind of asphalt repair do you have places where we would do it?
well, I know Front of South is being discussed as a repair. There's some desire to move that entrance and allow parallel, instead of parallel parking, angled parking, but you have to either move towards the building or towards the flagpole if you, so that'll be a patch job this year, because we're actually scheduled to replace the staff parking lot, or that parking lot at the end of that. And we want to do that all in one, if it's going to be a complete tear out. It's, you know, just the effects of winter, so the patching will be district-wide. But South's one, I was just out there today, so that's one I can quickly reference.
Ms. McCaffrey, or Ms. Reinacek, sorry.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to understand this. So we adopted a budget and we approved it, and then this is going outside of that and we're spending more than we budgeted for?
No, what happens, a while back, we used to not do this, and the auditor said you guys should be approving budget transfer amendments as part of your proper governance of the board. So this, I think we started doing this 4 or 5 years ago, because we weren't doing it really. We were just moving money and it wasn't really authorized by the board. So, you know, you should be budgeting your year to where you do have a little surplus. We've been lucky to have good surpluses. And then when you have that surplus, then you can make budget amendment adjustments at the end of the year to take care of maintenance items rather than just building up a reserve fund. And, well, as a reserve fund that we have fully funded at this point, so. Mr.
So it's
Como?
not new,
This
I'm
is a
sorry.
transfer between accounts.
Right.
So it's just what bucket does it go in? We could make amendments now too, to the actual total amount of the budget, but none is being presented before us, so.
Yeah, our total revenues don't change, it's how we spend our money that changes. So if we end up spending less than we project on certain things, it can amount to a budget transfer within the budget, so, because we don't get more revenue. We're on revenue limits, and so money doesn't fall out of a tree for us, in essence, in general.
Yeah, so,
You mean under budget for this year by
And
$650,000, basically, is what we're saying.
at least.
We're under budget. So
Mr.
this
Clark
money-
is expected to be under budget by at least 3 to 4 times that every year.
Well, yeah, that's what we're expecting that, but
Yeah.
we'll see. Materializes.
and one thing to keep in mind, because Dr. Gray's, he's a financial superintendent, which is a rare thing. This year's add to fund balance is going to be higher than what we would have thought, but keep in mind that OPEB settlement's in there. So the number's gonna be skewed versus comparing to a standard year. So just keep that in mind, that there's other things going on, or a very unique transaction is occurring this year. Otherwise, we try to come in as close to budget as we can.
One of my concerns as we go through this and the fund balance and things is we invested heavily in some football fields, and I don't know what their replacement life is expected and replacement costs. We should be accruing money for that. Because they're not cheap.
And that's one other thing that I think will change, I don't know if next year. Last year, we created Fund 46, and the benefit to Fund 46 is it's a long-term maintenance fund. But unlike Fund 41, where you have to levy into it at the beginning of the school year and you can't alter from that path, Fund 46 is, we can transfer into it at the end of the fiscal year. So once we get this type of data, if we don't want to expend those dollars immediately, we can set it aside, because those fields, 12 to 15 years, somewhere in that, and they're already several years old, that kind of project, we could start setting aside X amount. I don't want to throw a number out there, but that's a cost you do know you are going to have, and more than likely, it's not going to be a fund-raised expenditure at that point. Those fields are ours, I would guess. But Fund 46 can become, and the reason I bring it up is when you establish that, you have to wait 5 years from the time you move money in there to be able to expend it. So we're on a year and change right now. But it's something I think next year we make part, or if this fiscal year comes out, continues to look very good, maybe you could do it now under the premise that we can't expend it for
5 years, but if you're gonna need it
3.5 at that point, but
sometime 7 years down the road, this would be the time to consider that.
Absolutely.
Mr. Como?
We have a sinking fund established right now, right, for the swimming pool up at South. Would that be something that should be put in Fund 46 also, or not?
I don't know if you'd have to, but it's not a bad, it fits there in terms of its purpose. It's simply an accounting entry. We would still track it separately, but I actually have on my whiteboard in my office a report that I plan on giving this summer about our Fund 40s. There's the land fund, and there's the football fields, and there's, all these little bits and pieces, just to kind of really take 15 minutes and here's where we're at, here's the purpose as we understand it, here are the restrictions or not of the use of those funds. I think it'd be good just to get you reacclimated with those.
Can we accept donations in the Fund 46?
I would think not. Don't quote me on that, because you have Fund 21, which is a donations fund, and you could let the money sit in there and roll. But I'm guessing on that.
Yeah, I'll add that to
I would think not.
This is a valid
Yeah, we can get back to you on that.
check.
Mr. Onachek?
Not sure if I can ask this question, so if you say no, it's fine. When you were talking about the football fields, I know that the football teams, or I should say the junior teams and all of them, were going to be raising money from the community as we were going to pay a portion of that. I think Kurt had brought up the question at one time, are they still collecting on that, or because we haven't seen anything? Squeaky wheel gets the oil. If we want to see that, don't we need to
Well, there's commitments on that. I'm just like the pool. There's commitments on the pool. There is commitments on the fields, and I think the youth football normally has been very good about their keeping their commitments. And we had also youth soccer was also in there, wasn't it?
Soccer was in there, SC Waukesha. We have vendors that there was essentially advertising agreements agreed to, and we spent last summer a great deal of time of finding out where we were and all of that. It was kind of a mixed bag of information. So, but overall, the people who had committed have been paying from what I can tell. Now, the advertising, we didn't get the signage. Originally, not to go so deep into this, but the signage was supposed to be painted on the fields. The paint that they put on chemically didn't mix with the fields. So we didn't do the signage last year. We have new stand-up signs now, kind of like what you see in more European soccer type of, and so we didn't build them last year because there was no we're resuming that billing this summer. But that's probably a report in and of itself. But I think we're doing okay on that.
Maybe we can get somebody to donate a digital advertising sign so we can just rotate right
Oh, yeah.
through. Wouldn't that be great? Yeah. Hey, Joe.
For anyone who's watching.
Comstar. Yeah. Okay. Good question, though. Sounds like you looked into that just last year where we stood on all that stuff.
Yeah, it needed to be looked into.
Yeah, okay. Those constantly got to be monitored because, there's commitments made,
And unlike the pool where you had a contract, a full legal document, you get into donations and pledges, you don't have that as much of the documentation, and that's what we really do, is just to bring all those files into one place, and now we know where we are and where we're heading, so.
Well, I think it's incumbent upon the booster clubs to make sure, what was committed to for the fields gets covered somehow by somebody.
Yeah, and the
It was a
booster
small
clubs-
portion. It was a small portion of the total cost, as I recall, so. Because I wanted more, but I lost that vote too. Any other questions? I would like to hear a motion. We need to approve this, right, these budget transfers?
I move approval of the 2016-17 budget amendment as presented.
Second, or first by Mr. McCaffrey, seconded by
Second?
Mr. Monachek. Just jumped right in on there. We beat you on that one.
Perfectly fine.
I heard her screaming. Second by Mr. Monachek. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Now, we're going to move from the, we're going to move the executive session up and go ahead of the information items. That was the intent, right?
Yeah, that way Sarah can be back, so if we can get a motion.
We need a motion for our executive session to adjourn. Mr. Como?
I move to adjourn to executive session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85, Parent 1, Parent E, for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting of other public business regarding a bypass construction plan proposed by the Department of Transportation, which requires closed sessions for competitive or bargaining reasons.
Do I have a second on the motion?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Como, second by Mr. Onachek. Any additional discussion? Roughly how long do we expect this to go? Because we'll have to bring
Half hour for time?
half hour to 45 minutes.
It's up to you. I'm happy to give as much explanation as you folks need to feel comfortable.
It's probably going to be half hour to 45
Yeah,
minutes.
I would say,
yeah.
because we have some options. We have some, this is on the board agenda as well. We're finally at a point where we need to make a decision on how we want to proceed, so it could take a half hour to 45 minutes pretty
Okay.
easily.
So any further discussion on the motion?
Roll call vote.
Okay, with no further discussion, we'll have a roll call vote.
Mrs. Reinacek?
Aye.
Ms. Madden?
Aye.
Mr. O'Brien?
Aye.
Mr. McCaffrey?
Aye.
And Mr. Como?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. We will move into executive session. Monthly budget update.
You have to say you're back in open session.
We're back in open session. Monthly budget. I thought I said that earlier. Okay. Information item, monthly budget update. Everybody turn on your mics.
Yes, microphone back on. Pretty much we're right on target with where we expect all of our spending and our revenues to come in, with the exception of Darren's good news about having the 650,000 move over. Some of our major resources this past month as far as revenues were the tax payments that came in. We also had Title I, II, and III payments, and Common School Library Fund. Common School Library Fund came in about $60,000 less than we had budgeted, but we were able to stop the spending of it, so it did not impact the overall budget because we have cut off the spending for the rest of it. And we will be budgeting a little more conservative next year, given the drop this year. Nothing really exciting to talk about in the expenditures. So since we've gone on a long time, and unless you have any questions,
Any more questions on monthly budget
tax
update?
levy's right up there with what we expected to have it at this point in time.
Report that's pretty much the same every month.
If there's anything
We're
ever.
pretty predictable, right?
Right, and if there's anything, we'll bring it out, but I hate to make everybody sit through the,
Yeah.
We like it that way.
Okay, next information item, 403B plan update.
Yeah, if you remember last fall, we formed the committee that we were gonna be reducing the number of 403B vendors from 17 down. Process has now been. Right, in terms of identifying the vendors that will be on the list, effective July 1 of 17, Fidelity, WA, and Voya will be our three approved vendors. With that, though, the employees still have nearly 200 mutual funds to choose from, even though it's three vendors. And the only other thing I wanted to add to that is any employees who have already contributed to a vendor that's no longer approved can leave those dollars with that vendor if they choose. But any contributions after July 1st will have to go to one of these three. We've already started the outreach. We had a 403B meeting with staff last week, and we'll have one or two more, and then we'll hit it again in fall. And we think with these three, we have a range of services. Fidelity won't be in part of any in-services. They don't have a field presence. They're a 1-800 type of 403B provider. But WA and Voya both have a field presence that'll assist us. And the last thing, we've developed this dashboard that's attached. And we'll put this out on the shared drive or our website so staff can get it doesn't attempt, and we footnote that it doesn't try to knock out every single legalese with a 403B vendor, but it just gives employees a rough, what are their fees, can you do loans, do they do Ross, do they do pre and post tax offerings. So we've gone from 17 vendors with truly nothing more than 800 numbers listed next to them to this dashboard. And with Voya and WA, you'll have actual contact names eventually. Fidelity will always be that lower fee, but you don't have a person. You have a financial advisor that might be helping you, but you don't have to. So we think that'll be helpful. And then here's the enrollment kit also that staff are getting. And if staff are with these three vendors right now, there's really nothing they need to do. We did negotiate better fee arrangements with Voya from what we had, because they see the potential for growth. Obviously, we've narrowed the field quite a bit. So I think we hit a lot of the goals we had established on the front end. So just thought I'd come back and update you on where we are. And I should add, and I put it on my executive summary, the staff has been fantastic through this process. Lots of questions, but they also understood the need to get down from 17. So.
Questions, Mr. Como?
Just appreciate the effort, Darren. It's taken some time and for you and your staff to get to this point. I think it's gone well from my perspective, and still our employees have a choice of three, which most employers there's one, and that's the only choice. So there's still some flexibility there too. So I've really appreciated the planning that you and your team have put into this and the execution. I've heard nothing negative from anyone. And usually if things aren't going well, we have people who will express that to the Board of Education. So I haven't heard anything. So I'm assuming no news is good news from the
No,
rural
as I
perspective.
mentioned in the executive, the staff have been fantastic. Good, fair questions. I mean, we got a lot of questions, but there was, you know, when we started this, I was afraid it was gonna be, my son-in-law works for whoever who didn't make the, you know, it'd be more personal, but, you know, they wanted options, but I think a lot of our staff, certainly those who aren't participating yet, they need education on what it is, and
Yes.
we simply couldn't do that with 17 vendors. To give them all equal access and whatever you wanted to do would have collapsed under its own weight, so.
Yes.
I think we've simplified it, we've given them a range of services. Fidelity's, like I said, an 800 number type of service. WA has a lower fee, but then you pay à la carte for any financial add-ons you want. And then Voya tends to be more of a turnkey type of solution, so we gave them different service levels.
And the dashboard is a great idea. Did you develop that with Steve, or?
It's
is
something I had envisioned when we started. I didn't know if vendors would want to help us create it, because they all have their own selling points that they want to stress. But I wanted to get to something less intimidating
Yeah.
than the list of
This is great.
17 800 numbers.
Any experience yourself with FOIA at McQuanigal? Did they have them, or?
I think they might have had, well, yeah, it was ING.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't work with them personally, but yeah, ING was there.
Well, I have FOIA, so my wife has it, so personalized service is actually quite good, so. Websites are good, and lots of investment options. I also have Fidelity, and I also have Vanguard. FOIA actually, probably as far as what they would like to see as a provider, yeah.
And Voya is actually, you know, WA is certainly a player in that the name has a lot of trust with staff. But Voya has actually done exclusive, you know, the one vendor for some neighbor, Conomowocs one I can name off the top of my head. I don't plan on addressing this topic again for quite some time. But at some point, maybe we have that discussion. There's some advantages. I think the fees would come down, but you lose choice. I mean, it's all, what are your priorities, so.
Well, what happened is in WA and Voya, when it got opened up, and then Voya actually aggressively pursued that market. You know, and that's why they're where they're at today in this area.
Yeah.
So. Okay, any other questions on 403B? I think this is something the staff will eventually be comfortable with and satisfied with, even those who are disappointed. They aren't able to invest as they have in the past.
Yeah, once we get it up and running, the people transition, and I think we'll be offering a better service to staff, and hopefully they like that.
Okay. Third information item, facility master plan.
Just a quick update. I'm trying to keep this agenda item going month to month. We've scheduled a board workshop for May 24th at 6 p.m. to kind of do what we did last, I think it was February. Go over what we, not so much our needs, and what I'm hoping to get out of that workshop is some defining goals or objectives for a facility master plan. You know, just some topic areas such as, should we pursue a K-8 STEM building? That'd be helpful to know. We have land holdings, we just spent a lot of time talking. Is new construction something we should investigate or not? Are we looking to maintain the number of buildings we currently have or not? Just to help define scope. Because our scope here with 25 sites can be as big as you can imagine, or incredibly narrow. So to help me develop a plan, you know, I want some input from the board on the front end rather than me coming in, hey, I've got these great plans, and everyone looks at me, you know, like I'm on my way to my next job or whatever, you know. So, but really, I think what we're transitioning, we have the maintenance study, and I think that's
He's
still.
smart.
still relevant information. But also, in my mind, we're really going down a path of a facility master plan. Where should our schools be? What can we do? What options do we have? Do we look at reducing and doing additions? I mean, there's a lot of things you can do with your sites, but I need some guidance from you on plan development and scope, because
I think the number one thing we gotta look at is our enrollment trends. And with those enrollment trends, how many facilities can we continue to have and where they're located? Whether we build another middle school and what that would mean in terms of the whole district restructuring, and is that something that we can afford to put the community through?
Yeah.
Part, because we all know when you build a school, that has impact, and, and my guess is it's gonna
can
be.
be that.
It's going to be a very difficult decision to build a school and reconsolidate the district in some ways. So.
And that's the perfect example, and why I'm looking for some tighter definition of the scope is the time and energy to figure out, let's say you add a building, whatever grade level it is, and the ripple effect through the district. If that's not on the table, I'd prefer to know that now rather than put all that energy and, I mean, we're in a great position that we have land holdings. I mean, that gives you a lot of options, but with that comes costs and, you know, those types of conversations. So we're also planning, we're putting together another tour. I'm working, I think I'm gonna have Epstein lead the next tour. Last time I didn't because I wanted it to be more informal. I think it'd be helpful to have them along too, because they can talk about the theory of the design of a building. We're looking at, I was emailing with Glenn, Lake Mills has a new elementary school, and Economowalk has a newer, a few years now.
Intermediate schools?
Mills, or intermediate, whatever. And I think they're sister schools. I think they basically have the same layout, so you don't have to go to one. But trying to get that on the calendar before summer, because I think you want to see it with the kids. Every school looks huge when there's no kids in it, you know, so. So that's what we're doing on the facility front. Again, I think this facility master planning can take a long time.
Well, one of the problems we have as a district is our buildings are actually in pretty good shape, if you want to call that a problem. If you want to call that a problem. If you're trying to build a new school, it's quite often it's because the schools you have are in terrible condition, and it's time to make a change. Where with us, we have maintained our buildings over the years, and therefore it's not so easy to say, well, we're going to close these schools to make this.
Those conversations are never, well, this board has had those. Those are never easy.
Right.
Regardless of what's getting you to that point, those are tough votes.
Okay, May 24th, put it on your calendars. Anything else on this? Any other questions?
Wanted to update you.
Information item? for the board? Okay, with that, we're ready to adjourn, people? And meeting's adjourned.